Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
7 things to watch in the PA special election. Pittsburgh, Republicans want to avoid an embarrassing loss in Trump country. Democrats are hoping for a narrative-setting victory, and it's all for a special election in a district that won't exist in a few months. Tuesday's results in the race between Republican Rick Saccone and Democrat Conor Lamb will provide clues on the midterm season ahead, specifically how bad it might be for President Donald Trump and the GOP. Trump carried the district by 20 points in 2016, a loss in the special election would be disastrous to the party's fading hopes of holding the House. In response, Republican outside groups have unleashed millions in TV ads to damage Lamb, who's cast himself as a centrist Democrat and vowed not to back Nancy Pelosi if he's elected. A Monmouth University poll released Monday showed Lamb with a single-digit lead. Democrats have largely outperformed turnout in regular and special elections throughout the past year, and Lamb's team hopes that will hold. Here are Politico's 7 things to watch in Tuesday's special election in Pennsylvania's 18th congressional district. Polls close at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Democratic enthusiasm, once again. Democrats, from Virginia to Texas, have voted at historic rates in the past year. That continued enthusiasm in southwestern Pennsylvania is a key element to Lamb's success. If the pattern of higher rates of Democratic turnout holds, the Monmouth poll shows his lead swelling to 6 points, versus just a 2-point advantage under a more conservative turnout scenario. Lamb isn't worried. Our people would drive through a rainstorm or a snowstorm to get to the polls, Lamb said in an interview with Politico on Saturday, calling the momentum palpable. Some light snow is likely on Tuesday, but only minor accumulations, if any, are in the forecast. This traditionally blue-collar district is ancestrally Democratic. The party has a 6-point registration edge in the district, with a solid block of union-affiliated voters. But it's voted reliably Republican over the past decade. Former GOP Representative Tim Murphy, who resigned amid a sex scandal last year, held the seat for 15 years, with Democrats not even fielding a candidate in 2016 or 2014. At the presidential level, Mitt Romney won the district by double digits in 2012, and Trump crushed it here in 2016. Republicans are banking on Trump's multiple visits to the district, along with a stream of top surrogates, to energize the base on behalf of Saccone. The president, who called Saccone a very fine human being, urged voters at his Saturday night rally to vote like crazy on Tuesday. But if GOP voters sit it out, you can expect questions about Trump's ability to activate his own coalition for other down-ballot candidates. County by county. To win, Lamb needs to run up his totals in Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh bleeds into the suburbs, the bluest part of the 18th congressional district. In particular, former state Democratic Party Chairman Jim Burns said to watch the southern half of the district, which leans more conservative. If Saccone does poorly there in southern Allegheny right out of the gate, that's a bad sign for him, Burns said, adding that Lamb's political family, which hails from the area, has built up name recognition there that's well respected by both parties. In the 1970s, Lamb's grandfather served as the Democratic leader in the state Senate, and his uncle is Pittsburgh's city controller. But Saccone's state legislative district, which he's represented for almost a decade, overlaps with these Allegheny County suburbs, so Republicans believe he won't cede as much ground here as Lamb's team hopes. Saccone must also run up his margin in the 3 largely rural counties, Westmoreland, Washington, and Greene. Lamb has also made a push for these rural areas, opening campaign offices in all 4 counties. He's also spent a lot of time in Greene County, home to a lot of coal miners who were really anti-Hillary but are open to Conor, said Rich Jakubik, a 67-year-old member of the United Mine Workers of America, who attended Lamb's rally in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, on Sunday. First electoral test of tax reform messaging. Republicans believe that tax reform will be a signature issue for maintaining their majority in 2018, which will be put to its first electoral test in Pennsylvania. But Republicans have backed away from using that line of attack against Lamb in TV ads in recent weeks. From February 4 to February 11, roughly two-thirds of broadcast TV ads from Saccone's campaign, Congressional Leadership Fund and the National Republican Congressional Committee dealt with taxes, according to a political analysis of advertising analytics data. For the week of February 18, that dropped to 36%, and to 14% the week after. Since the beginning of March, tax ads have been essentially non-existent. Instead, those groups are opting to focus on Lamb's tenure as a federal prosecutor, accusing him of negotiating plea bargains for drug dealers. Do tariffs matter here? Trump announced tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum, a move that should appeal to areas of western Pennsylvania. The president touted those tariffs in his Saturday night rally, emphasizing them again in a tweet on Monday as a reason to back Saccone, who will be much better for steel and business. But both candidates support Trump's tariffs, making the announcement a bit of a wash in the district. And the polling finds little impact on the race. According to the Monmouth poll, 96% of voters said the president's tariffs decision hasn't caused them to change their choice of candidate. 3% said the tariffs make them more likely to vote for Saccone, while 1% said they are more likely to back Lamb. Guns, progressive liberals and centrist Democrats. Both parties have handled the debate over gun rights in unexpected ways. Lamb has tried to strike a more moderate tone. He's demurred on more robust restrictions on gun ownership. But his campaign is testing whether support for stronger background checks can work in a conservative district, running an 11th-hour advertisement touting his efforts to keep guns from criminals and people in need of mental health treatment and calling Saccone so extreme he's fought to eliminate Pennsylvania's background check system to buy a gun. Republicans, meanwhile, hoped to chip away at Lamb's support among hardcore liberals by spotlighting his support for some gun rights in mailers, a strategy outside groups could use elsewhere to meddle in crowded Democratic primaries. Thank you Conor Lamb for opposing gun restrictions, one Congressional Leadership Fund mailer says. Byrne, the former state Democratic Party chairman, insisted the tactic doesn't work here because Democrats will see through it, he said. You're in western Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of gun owners out here. Democrats get that. The Republican cavalry. Republican outside groups are trying to pull Saccone across the finish line. Total outside spending in the race currently stands at $12.5 million, with the vast majority of that total, more than $10.6 million, coming from GOP-aligned groups. The National Republican Congressional Committee has spent $3.5 million. Congressional Leadership Fund, the leading GOP super PAC for House races, has spent $3.4 million. Saccone has needed the help. As of February 21, Lamb had outspent Saccone by a 5-to-1 margin, $3.1 million to $615,000. If Saccone wins on Tuesday, Republicans will take heart that their attack lines, crime, immigration, linking Democratic candidates to Pelosi, still work in GOP-leaning districts, though the party has to spend big money to get those messages out there. But if Lamb wins, it will signal to Republicans that the political environment is so hostile that the party can't hold a seat. Trump won by 20 points, even after spending 8 figures. The disappearing district. Not only is Tuesday's election for just the remaining 9 months of Murphy's unexpired term, the 18th district won't even exist next week, the filing deadline in Pennsylvania for the 2018 midterm elections. The state Supreme Court struck down the existing congressional map earlier this year, ruling that it was so gerrymandered by Republicans that it violated the Commonwealth's constitution. The court drew a new map that splits the homes of Lamb and Saccone into different districts. Republicans in the state are appealing the new map. After the special election, Saccone said he plans to run in the newly created 14th district, a Republican-leaning seat that covers rural, southwestern counties. Lamb, meanwhile, is expected to challenge Representative Keith Rothfuss, RPA, in a slightly more competitive seat. Republicans believe defeating Lamb on Tuesday would be a potentially fatal blow to the Democrats' chances of beating Rothfuss in the fall, while a Lamb victory in the special election would portend a competitive, and expensive, member versus member race. In an interview, Lamb insisted that he's not grappling with the new map yet. "The courts haven't resolved anything with the new maps, so we'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Lamb said. Kevin Robillard contributed to this report from Arlington, Virginia. White House slams sanctuary supporters in advance of Trump visit. As President Donald Trump prepares for his first trip to California since taking office more than a year ago, the White House is lashing back at prominent Golden State politicians who've trained their fire on Trump's aggressive enforcement of immigration laws. The acting head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Thomas Homan, took aim Monday night at House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi for denouncing Trump's immigration policies as cowardly and for accusing immigration officers of terrorizing immigrants in California. "How dare she say we're terrorizing immigrant communities?" Homan said in a conference call the White House organized with reporters. "Our officers are protecting the immigrant community in many ways." Pelosi has repeatedly declared Trump's enforcement efforts as cowardly, invoking the term last year in response to a decision to end protections for Nicaraguan citizens who've been in the U.S. for a couple of decades, to immigration raids launched in California earlier this year and to a lawsuit the Trump administration filed last week challenging the constitutionality of 3 so-called sanctuary laws the state passed last year. However, the immigration chief said Pelosi's remarks were an insult to his officers. "You're talking about law enforcement people that get up every day and leave the safety and security of their home and their families and strap a gun to their hip every day to defend this nation. That's the farthest thing from cowards you're ever going to see," Homan said. So, her quotes were just beyond the pale. Homan also faulted Pelosi and Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat California, for criticizing ICE officers who are carrying out congressional directives. "If people don't like it, people like Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, they can change the law, they're legislators," he said. Holman argued that by denying immigration officers access to local jails, local and state officials are endangering those officers and increasing the chance that a wanted immigrant's family members and associates will be arrested in a raid carried out in the community. He also faulted Governor Jerry Brown, Democrat California, and others for denying ICE access to a California database tracking suspected gang members. In another portion of the call, 2 Trump administration officials who spoke on condition of anonymity accused sanctuary jurisdictions of bankrolling human smuggling operations by encouraging would-be illegal immigrants to believe they will face few consequences in the U.S. The federal officials also defended the use of immigration laws to detain anyone in the country illegally, regardless of their criminal history or ties to the United States. "When we remove someone who's been here and has a U.S. citizen child, they're difficult cases. These are not easy cases for us," said one official. "You shouldn't get a pass just because you're able to hide well for 10 years. And they know they're in the country and they choose to have a child in this country knowing it'll be a U.S. citizen by virtue of birth, they put themselves in that position. So, to vilify the men and women of ICE for enforcing the law and to execute a judge's orders that are lawfully given, it's just unfair to the men and women of ICE to put them in that position." Trump also turned his attention to the immigration issue in advance of his trip, which is expected to include a stop to visit border wall prototypes being tested near San Diego. On Monday, he retweeted a message from Representative Mark Meadows, RNC, urging that the federal government cut off funds to so-called sanctuary jurisdictions. The president did say the omnibus should not fund the sanctuary cities, White House spokesman Hogan Gidley said. The administration is already seeking to block cities and states with so-called sanctuary policies from certain Justice Department and Homeland Security Department grant funds. Supreme Court rulings restrict the federal government's authority to tie other funding or all federal funding to such conditions.